three things from the ISO. The first thing is the ASO's statistics on microgeneration, which show the solar boom we've seen at the level of consumer self-supply. By early 2015, we had seen about 5.5 megawatts of solar installation in Alberta at just over 1,000 sites after about 7 years of growth. And in the last 4.5 years, around 4,500 additional customers across Alberta have multiplied the solar capacity by tenfold to 55 megawatts. So it's important that we take a moment to take stock of this boom, I think, because let's just consider these figures for a moment. That's well over $100 million of investment, and I don't think that's a story that's really well told throughout Alberta at this point. And this is clearly no longer a cottage industry. That huge growth has meant a huge increase in the capacity of the industry to build and connect these installations, and it's now a serious employer and a major contributor to the economy. So thing two is the new boom that's underway with utility-scale solar power, which we can also glean from ASO stats. So here's our current operating solar capacity in the province. There's the 56 megawatts of microgeneration in green, and then the 15 megawatt solar Brook Solar at the utility scale in dark orange. Now, here's the growth that is very likely to come in the next year or two at the utility scale. First, the projects that have corporate power purchase arrangements or offtake agreements of some form or other, which means they have a very, very high likelihood of getting financed and then getting constructed. So that's the first offtake announced bar that you see there. That category alone would increase our utility scale complement by over 12-fold. So all of those are also stage 5 projects, but if we lump those in, stage 5 means you've gone through pretty much all of the upfront approvals process. You've spent quite a bit of money on your project already, frankly, getting through that process. So you have a lot of skin in the game to get her done, and you must think at least that you have strong prospects of getting financed to build your project. So this 300 megawatts would represent a 20-fold increase of our currently operating utility scale solar. So all in all, this would be a ballpark $500 million investment in new solar in Alberta. And again, these are very likely projects. Add in stage 4, and you basically add one new project to get up to 700 megawatts, which is Green Gate's Traverse project. It has its AUC approval, so also well down the track of the approvals process. We don't know anything about an offtake agreement for that project, but Green Gate has said it plans to start construction next year, so obviously they're quite bullish on it. And so if we take all of, everything up to including this stage 4 projects, we would clearly break the 1 billion mark for solar investment in Alberta, which I think is quite an astounding fact. And while we let that sink in for a moment, let's just take a glance at the full scale of planned projects in Alberta that are on ASO's project list. So as you can see, our current complement gets smaller and smaller and smaller by proportion. It's nearly 4 gigawatts. So these are all projects at some stage of application and for interconnection. And frankly, they would represent well over $5 billion in investment in solar in Alberta. Will all of these happen? We know from experience with the project list of all different fuel types that at least some will not happen, at least not anytime soon. But this is a ballpark measure of the amount of interest in solar in the province. And yet, the ASO's most recent long-term outlook forecast only 216 megawatts of additional solar over the next 10 years. So less than the stage 5 amount up here is what they would be projecting out to 2030. So I think we should have a bit of reflection on that fact. And that we still don't account for the reality that solar is entering a boom period, and we're not planning our system, frankly, to interconnect and accommodate the scale of investment that is likely in this industry. So that leads us to the third and final thing. In making its forecasts of future investment, the ASO is using costs of solar that are 2 to 3 times more than the actual costs we have evidence for from the government contracts that were announced earlier this year. So now, can all solar come in at $48 per megawatt hour today? As we might hear more about from some of the speakers, probably not for a variety of reasons. But is the cost in 2026 going to be over $100 per megawatt hour, as is shown by the ASO's cost projections here? I would say definitively no. So the pernicious myth of expensive renewables strikes again. We've seen this a lot over the history of this resource, even after we have proof that it's frankly no longer true, proof that was demonstrated by government contracts from earlier this year. So to their credit, the AESO has more recently acknowledged just 2 weeks ago at an event that its projections for solar cost declines are probably 4 to 5 years behind reality. So that's maybe progress in kind of reconsidering the reality of where this resource is at this time.